Surprise, this is going to be another Facebook Live, and I have with me Anne. This
Hi!
is Coach Anne. Okay, so we are with E2P, and today I'm going to interview Anne. And before we get started, I wanted to thank you all for joining us. I want to acknowledge you for tuning in and pat yourself on your back for showing up. You're your number one cheerleader. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Anne.
So I am one of the relatively new coaches with our triathlon team, Endurance to Perform. And I have a pretty interesting background as far as, what happens off of the triathlon playing field, so to speak. I am a scientist. I have my doctorate in biomedical sciences and pathobiology. I specialize in infectious disease research, or not research, but like infectious disease. I did a lot of infectious disease research back in the day, but my specialty is really in diagnosis and prevention. I have kind of bounced around, living all over kind of the Eastern Seaboard. Grew up in New England, went to school in Chicago, moved back east, went to Virginia Tech for grad school, and then landed here in DC, where I love it. I live with my husband and our two cats. Yep, Moshi and Freddie.
No.
So if you follow me on social media, you will definitely see the two cats, famous cats of Instagram. I say that they are my assistant coaches when I train from home.
I got a story about that. So
yes.
something you may not know about me, and this is before we go on with the interview. My family and I have rescued 3 pairs of feral kitties.
Aww.
And I'm a preference for the black kitties, and they must be siblings and bonded pairs. So my last one was Prada and Stella, and they went to their forever home on a horse farm with a bunch of dogs out in Ashburn, Virginia. So
Yay.
I just want to say I'm so happy that you have your famous cats on Instagram.
No, I rescued our older cat Moshi when she was about 6 months old. She was a barn cat. And she was, at the time, and you'd never know it now, the runt of her litter. And she was getting picked on, and she just needed to get out of that environment into a good home, and that's how she landed with me.
That's awesome.
And Freddie is our little tuxedo cat. Yeah, they are. They're also such troublemakers, but they get away with everything because they're so stinking cute. The working theory is he was a pet of an undergrad living in an apartment. They moved out at the end of the year, and unfortunately, he got left behind. A good Samaritan found him in a bush, brought him to our community practice veterinary hospital. And of course, because my program was through the vet school, I was on what we used to call the Sarah McLachlan email list.
Wow.
Where, it would be, ex-pet needs a home, someone needs some love here. And then, of course, Freddie appeared on my email one day, and it was, the race to frantically call and yell in all caps and text my husband to come and meet this cat with me. And yeah, the rest is history. Brought him home. And
yeah, it's amazing that, and we're going to go back to triathlon, but just, when you pick a pet that becomes part of your family, that this is the one that belongs with your family.
I think it's definitely also a very mutual choosing. I think, both of them chose us. I mean, Moshi definitely let me know that my husband was the one, because she missed him constantly, and she had never done that with any other person that I had ever dated. And yeah,
that's awesome. Oh, I love this.
Yeah.
So with that introduction, I wanted to ask you about your coaching philosophy, and I know this is like a huge jump just to talk about the coaching philosophy, but I'm a little bit aware of how Christina coaches, but I want to hear about how you coach and how you plan to help our athletes grow.
Yeah. So, I don't think it's really a huge jump between, rescuing cats and coaching people. Okay, I lied, it totally is. But, there's a lot that goes into my philosophy as far as what I expect from my athletes, and also think what my athletes expect from me. It definitely has to be a mutual relationship where I choose them, but they also choose me to, and they put their trust in me to be their coach. And something that I coach throughout everything we do is balance. And so we'll start with my mantra, which is, be the best version of yourself at your next start line. And of course, in triathlon, our start lines are very literal. It's literally the air horn going off when we're in the water, or if we're doing a running or cycling race, it's the same thing. We cross that timing mat and we are in go mode. But in order to get to that start point, like, you really have to do the training. You have to put in the work. You have to be dedicated. And if you have a goal of doing your best race that day, if your goal is to be the best you can be at that race, you need to be the best person you can be before the race even starts.
Yeah.
And it's training, it's patience, it's balance of nutrition, it's balance of lifestyle with training. You know, because believe it or not, we do have lives outside of our training for triathlon. And you know, when I talk about balance, it's also a very physical approach. You know, are your muscles in balance? Are you strong enough to make it through at a certain pace that you want to achieve for that race?
Yeah, or in other words, how much discomfort do you want to be in if you're saying, I want to run or train or do something that has never been done before? Absolutely.
And I mean, and it's not necessarily the speed that will get you to the finish line. A lot of it is strength.
Yeah.
And it's mental strength, it's physical strength. I mean, a lot of times people will hit that wall during their race, and it's mental because it's physical. It's mental because you literally feel like you've run against a cement wall in that race. And it's literally just strength and willpower that are going to carry you through.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, you know, my philosophy starts with be the best version of yourself at that start line. And where does that start in training? It starts with what base are you at? You know, what foundation has been laid before I see you? You know, what foundation needs to exist before we start building the specified training on top of it? Because you can't have a gorgeous mansion without a strong foundation. Because a storm like the one that blew in through our area last night will come through and just knock the whole house down.
That's right.
And we see that all the time with athletes getting injured, with with setbacks and and struggles. And we try to eliminate those factors. We try to take everything into control that we can. We control the controllables. We eliminate the variables, and that really has a lot to do with balance.
Yeah.
Especially this year with the pandemic occurring. Pretty much all the races in America have been canceled. There are very few that are occurring, and a lot of athletes feel like they've had the rug pulled out from under them and say, oh, I had this race on my calendar this year. I was going to be the best version of myself on this date. And to me, it's like, why can't you be the best version of yourself at a different start line? Just redefine the start line. Do a mind shift, right? It's completely a mind shift, and that takes balance too. Because especially with athletes that train for the longer endurance hauls, like half Ironman, full marathons, marathon swims, grand fondos on the bike. Yeah. It's a lot of sacrifice. You trade time, like your time becomes a currency, and you pay into a bank and it doesn't cash out until that certain day. So it's that mental balance of like, well, how much should I keep sacrificing right now? And it's a balance of that. It's a balance of, am I going to say every first of the month, I'm going to race myself for the rest of the year. Yeah. Because I don't have any more races on my calendar. I'm going to race myself and see what the best version of myself is at the start of each month. Yeah. Or I'm going to set a personal best with lifting. Or I'm going to set a personal best in one of the 3 disciplines that I feel like I should work on.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are very, very good. With that, what has been your, what do you want to share about something that you had to overcome or any sort of setbacks?
Oh goodness. So this is like ripping my chest open and like showing everyone my heart right now. So a few years ago, I was really at the top of my triathlon career, so to speak, as an athlete personally. I had graduated with my doctorate. It was, such a haul to get that piece of paper and to get that silly looking hat and, the hood and everything. And then moving to DC with all of that stress left behind, it felt like I was a new person. And I shed the stress weight from grad school, and I just started listing out goals. I'm like, I want to beat my marathon time. Okay, well, I beat my marathon PR by 55 minutes in a year.
That's impressive.
I did back-to-back races constantly, and I got on the podium for the first time in triathlon. Back at the very first initial triathlon I ever did. I went back 2 years later, and I was there on the podium. And I went to nationals, and I did my first half Ironman, and I was very successful and very balanced in my job and my service in the community and in triathlon. Like, I felt like I was on top of everything. So I made the decision once we had kind of stabilized in the area to train for my first Ironman. And I was very lucky to train alongside of two amazing, strong women. And each of us had our own different training journeys, but we all arrived at the same start line and the same finish line as the best versions of ourselves. And I really felt like that year I was absolutely on top of my game. I felt so strong, I felt so capable, and I hit that finish line at Ironman Louisville with the biggest smile and the biggest roar out of my chest that day.
Wow.
And then 2 weeks later, everything hit the floor. I literally could not get out of bed. I was shivering constantly. I had no appetite. I went into a very serious dark depression, and I didn't know what was going on. And long story short, 7 months of trial and error diagnoses and seeing a doctor and talking with coaches and stuff, it turns out that I was going through premature menopause. And here I am, 36 years old. We had decided to put, a hold on starting a family until we'd been settled. And then, of course, that last big, the guilt factor on me was, why don't I just do my first Ironman and then we'll talk about the family stuff? Well, I'm still very much in like the balancing recovery phase. And I am on hormone replacement therapy. And I am very thrilled that I have found a coach that understands and listens to my body. Especially when I tell her that, things aren't going well, I don't feel great. But unfortunately, one of the huge side effects for me is I cannot push myself like I used to. I cannot put myself in that pain cave. I cannot put myself in the hole like I used to be able to do and just throw the grappling hook up and climb back out and just bounce out like I used to. And I feel that, through coming through this fog and this depression and like rebalancing myself, it was very much a situation of, well, now what? And, I had to look at myself and analyze myself as an athlete. And I had to look at myself as, the bigger picture. What makes me happy about doing this? Why do I want to continue doing this when I know it's punishment on my body? And it's the joy. Like, it's really the joy that comes out of the engagement, the discovery of my fitness levels, of like the freedom of riding a new place or swimming in a new place or running in potentially a new state or a new country. Mm-hmm. And, once I realized, I could reevaluate and reassign those goals for myself personally, that's when I really made the decision that I wanted to coach. And because I know the joy, I know the triumph, I know how amazing it feels to be in a triathlete or a runner or a swimmer or a cyclist. And I want to make sure that other people can experience that same joy and, achieve that, in a safe and positive and encouraging, nurturing environment. So,
yeah, that's incredible. I'd have to say there's triathletes, believe it or not, they learn and build a lot of resilience. Mm-hmm. Whether they do it the positive way or the negative way, they still do it. Now, I come along and want to encourage people to, choose your joy, be as positive as possible, mm-hmm. and that's a choice. It's an attitude if mm-hmm. you choose it. But if you choose it, what it does is it gives you the motivation and the strength when you don't want to. Yeah. It's like the feeling of like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, I mean, and everyone has bad days. That's something that is this crazy journey called life. And mm-hmm. we know what the good days are because we have the bad days. It's all perspective. It's all relative. I mean, there are certain days that, just aren't great. And that's just how it is. And but it's how you get through them. Yeah. And every time you get through one of those bad days, it just makes you a little stronger.
Speaking of mm-hmm. getting a little stronger, tell me about your most proudest accomplishment.
Oh goodness. So I have two.
I want to hear them both then.
Yeah, so the quick, easy, dirty one is obviously getting my doctorate.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was 6 years of pure unbridled agony in a very highly competitive environment. And I went through a lot of personal life stresses too in grad school, which they don't prepare you for at all. My third year of grad school, I lost my mother to cancer. My fourth year of grad school, I almost lost my husband to life-saving heart surgery that he needed. And it was a lot to just kind of keep crawling my way through day by day for a while until I gained momentum. And, along the way, just like everything else that we're talking about with triathlon, there were setbacks, there were days that were triumphs in the lab. And, my research got to a point and I was able to successfully defend my dissertation and I got hooded. Yay! So, my biggest accomplishment outside of that has to be my first Ironman by far. The amount of training you have to put in for an Ironman is...
You can't not train for it. Let's
You
just
can't.
say I can do a half Ironman a pretty good time, and I didn't train for it, but I'm not going to try that with half, not that full.
Yeah.
Full, like you can't.
If anyone came up to me like 3 weeks before their first triathlon and said it was a full Ironman, I would shake their hand and wish them luck and turn around. It's a lot of training, it's a lot of sacrifice, it's a lot of dedication to be able to get to that start line in a healthy fashion. You don't want to be skidding to that start line charred and burned up, or and a lot of people do. But everything just kind of clicked for me when I showed up in Louisville that October weekend, and it was several hours of like my victory lap, I guess I would say.
Did you feel ready at the start line?
I felt so ready. Oh yeah,
Because
I
you
felt
could
so
see
ready.
the end, right?
I could.
There you go.
And the day went by so fast. And that was something that blew my mind, is I thought there were going to be moments that just dragged on and on and on, but the day just went by so fast. I mean, the swim for me is my challenge sport by far. I pretty much tell myself when I swim at every stroke, get to your bike, get to your bike, get to your bike, get to your bike.
And I'm like, I want to keep swimming.
Right, so another fun medical fact about me, I have vertigo. So when I was in the Ohio River and the waves were coming up from the other direction as the current and caused whitecaps on the river, I had a lot of fun and I lost my breakfast. And I was not setting myself up for success for the rest of the day. And I swallowed some river water, which I'm probably radioactive at this point because of that. But I got on the bike and, I got in my groove on the bike. I love being on my bike. My bike is my favorite thing ever. And it was 112 miles of fun, of challenge, of beautiful scenery. Mother Nature decided to unleash at about mile 85. There was a huge storm that blew through Louisville that day.
Whoa.
And, if you're not familiar with triathlon, one of the rules on the bike, the hard and fast rules on the bike, is if you cross a double yellow line to pass someone and somebody official sees you, you are disqualified because it puts you and other people in a serious amount of danger. Well, here I am, mile 85, the end is kind of in sight. I have, less than 30 miles to go at this point. And Mother Nature starts unleashing a 45-mile-an-hour crosswind from my right, like off of my right shoulder. And I just tuck in as hard as I can on my bike. And, it was raining and I started skidding and the wind pushed me over the double yellow line. I was like, no. Like, no one saw this, right? We're good. So, pulled myself back over, happened again. Pulled myself back over, started happening again, pulled myself back, and I looked up at the sky, and I said some very choice 4-letter words to Mother Nature, and she responded by blowing me off my bike. Yeah. So here I was, skidding on the road at mile 85 on my bike with a full marathon run. And I literally just bounced off the road and hopped back on my bike and kept going. That's all I could do. I didn't know anything else to do that day because I had trained myself for that moment, even though I never knew that moment was going to happen.
Yeah, was you had to prepare for it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was the best version of myself at that start line. When I race, I have another mental cue for myself, which is inhale solution, exhale stress.
There you go.
So you prepare for these solutions in training, and when you have to execute those solutions in a race, you have to let it out of your body, because if you hold on to that stress, it's going to make for a really difficult rest of the race for you.
That's gonna be painful.
You're right, and it was painful, and bounced right back on the bike, finished the bike leg, did the marathon, and I will never forget that finish line. It was the most energetic, thunderous roar. All I wanted to do was hear those 4 words, and all I talked about for the entire year of training was, I want to hear these 4 words. And these 4 words are a lot of work. Like, you are an Iron Man.
Yeah.
Like, those mean more than the medal does at that race. And any Ironman. So you are an Ironman. I was screaming and roaring in my triumph so loudly that I couldn't hear it.
I'm so it's on my bucket list, and this is why I don't really do any races, is because I just want to enjoy what I want to enjoy right now. It's to swim, and a little bit of biking. I stopped running completely. I started out doing marathons. I took swimming a complete break for 10 years, even piano. So I understand, about not picking it up right now. And I did the New York Marathon back in 2002. But then I haven't done much, and no running right now. But right now it's just swimming and biking. And I tell people when I'm ready. Yeah, it's because then I really want to put the time to train for it. Start at the finish line with the best version of myself at the start line. Yeah,
there's no accidentally training for an Ironman.
No,
there just isn't. Like you literally have to plan out an entire calendar year with a race in mind on the schedule. Yeah, and you have to commit.
You do, and that also means self-discipline, being consistent. So my last question, and this is because I want to hear you share a little bit about your biggest role model before we wrap up.
Okay, so my biggest role model was my mother, who unfortunately passed away from cancer about 9.5 years ago. So it is very interesting, talking about my career as a scientist. I am the product of 2 accountants. And my parents did very different things with their accounting professions. My father is a tax preparer and a certified public accountant, very much by trade. My mother was the vice president of business and finance at Brown University for 20-something years. Wow. Or almost 20 years, I guess. So and these are 2 people, especially my mother, who her entire life was numbers. But she cared entirely more about people than numbers. She measured her success by the people she could engage and the people she could help. Wow. Over, any sort of ledger, any sort of report that she put out, any sort of meeting she attended. It was all about the people. It was all about the students. It was all about the fact that to her, knowledge was power, and higher education was the greatest vehicle to achieve that power, and to help as many people as she could to achieve that at her various institutions she worked at over the years. So I try to think that I live in her best shadow that she left. And, it's one of the reasons why I want to coach, is because, I would love to help people. And I love helping people. It's one of the reasons why, I'm making a shift away from, the science profession, because that level of gratification, that level of success of, putting a metric out there for the number of people you help just doesn't exist. And helping people and seeing their successes and sharing those successes with them brings me so much joy. So I owe my background to her. I owe my existence to her, obviously, but I owe a lot of that to her. And she was a fighter. She was one of the first females in her profession, and she fought her way through the glass ceiling and everything. And she fought a very hard battle with cancer, and she raised me, which I'm sure was a giant battle in itself. And, I'm very grateful, and I'm very, inspired by her every day for that.
You're going to be awesome, Coach.
Ah, thank you.
And I love your heart, and I love that you're really out there to help them become their best and give them the tools to succeed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're so excited to have you on the team, too. It's interesting working with Ivy, even just in the past couple of weeks, from when she has come on board with Endurance to Perform and has really become so thoughtful and so passionate about helping us be better coaches. And it's not something that we think about as coaches because we are very forward driven and very goal driven, but Ivy's showing us that balance that we try to show to our athletes, where it's the joy in what we do. It's the reason and the heart behind what we do. And we are so grateful and so lucky to have you.
Thank you. I can't wait. I can't wait to grow all of us and serve our community. And I hope that you all enjoyed our interview with Anne today, and you've gotten to know her a little bit better. And we can't wait to see what this year brings, because this is a year of opportunity. Just because there's a virus, that's not going to stop us from going after our dreams, our goals, our visions, and helping other people. And more than anything else, we need to be connecting. And so I'm so grateful that you decided to show up here in my home. And
well, thank you for having me.
Oh, I love it. But I just want to say I acknowledge all of you for showing up. Thank you so much for tuning in and for your support. And let us know what you think. Bye, everybody.
Take care. Be safe.
Yep. Oh, and have a gin drink while you're at it, too. Bye.